welcome into the Sacred, Sexy, Shameless Facebook group. Today I'm here with Sabrina Victoria, and she is the creator and CEO of Human Better 365, a human transformation company, and the creator of Her Version podcast, which is amazing. Make sure to go check that out. She is a speaker, entrepreneur, and author of Envision Your Best Life, a 90-day planner and creator of Catapult Your Life in 365 Days. A self-proclaimed queen of time, Sabrina focuses on time management and organization as the foundation of life. And it was in trying to fix herself in order to better an abusive relationship that led Sabrina to start reading up on personal development. And she now knows that she was playing the role as a codependent and was with a narcissist. So I'm so excited to dive into these topics today and have you here. So welcome, Sabrina.
Yes, girl.
And as we get started, I'd love for you to just share with this community and with the people listening kind of a little bit of your story and how you got to where you are now. And I love, I was just recently on your podcast and you were explaining the journals that you created that actually are kind of like what I would say are like abuser proof, or like you can't see on the outside what it actually is, but on the inside is just this amazing resource for women to regain their sense of self and where they can speak safely and fiercely their truths, and in a way that helps them empower and take their power back. So Sabrina, I would love to hear more from you of what led you here and what you got going on.
Yes. So my story, just like any story, is very long. So I'll condense it a little bit for you, but born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness. For anyone who knows about that religion, it's very black and white. There's not a whole lot of gray. So had a loss of voice, didn't really have an opinion, very quiet, very shy, very to myself. Any outlier thoughts that I had, I kind of had to keep to myself, because anytime I would voice those, it was very much like, don't you have faith? You have to have faith. So I learned early on where my place was as far as being a submissive, low-key, quiet female. And right around 18, 19, 20, decided, fuck this, not interested, and went on a rebellious streak. And when I say a rebellious streak, I mean what normal people do, which means date. So dated outside the religion. Unfortunately, because of lack of education, being told to abstain and then not knowing what it meant to get pregnant and all the logistics that go along with it, because nobody said anything. Everyone just said, don't have sex. Ended up pregnant at 20. Had my boy at 21. He's now 17 years old. And that just led me down a path of ridiculousness, no child support, no money, eviction notices at my apartment door, my car getting repoed, just a mess, just an absolute mess with religion, with family, with my entire life. And I wound up running into this guy, probably when my son was maybe 7 months old, who seemed like a knight in shining armor and was wanting to take care of me, was wanting to listen to me and console me and take me out to dinners. And I wound up with him for 15 years. And it was a roller coaster of just absolute ridiculousness because of the lack of education on my end. I didn't realize that giving up so much power on my end would have led me to basically create my own prison. When I say he took my power, it's not that he actually was like, give me all of your things. No, it was a manipulation. It was a, hey, why don't you leave your place and come stay with me for free? All you have to do is clean the house and do my laundry. And not me being like, okay. And then, me not being able to pay my phone bill because, certain situations with him being like, let me take over your phone bill, and me being like, okay. And then, the job, why don't you just come work for me? We can build an empire together. We can do all the things together, and we can retire when we're 50. And me being like, okay. And then the car. And then before you know it, a few years in, I have he controls all of my finances. He controls my phone, my computer, my car, everything. He controlled everything. And heavy manipulation, heavy mental and emotional abuse, sexual abuse, obviously financial abuse. And 8 years in, I was miserable, just absolutely suicidal, depressed, didn't show it, right? I was still this same bubbly, awesome, fantastic self. I was helping him build his business. We were hitting multi, levels financially. We were buying houses, we were buying cars. But on the inside, I was literally getting screamed at, verbally abused every single day, multiple times a day. And I was in the bathroom, on the floor, in the dark, year 8, bawling my eyes out, just in terror. For anybody who's encountered narcissistic abuse, they know what I'm talking about. The just absolute terror, just emotion just pouring out of you, and crying and screaming on the floor, just feeling so helpless, so helpless. And I had my phone and I Google searched one sentence, and the sentence was, "Why is my boyfriend bullying me?" And it was in that search that the whole world of narcissism opened up to me, and codependency and empathy. And I just dove in head first, like we all do when we figure it out, and realized that it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. Had nothing to do with me. And I'm living with this crazy person who has completely manipulated our entire relationship to look like I'm a bad person or a weak person. So it was at that point I made a plan. I opened up a secret bank account, and this was over a duration of months, a year. Opened up a secret bank account, a secret storage unit, opened up my first account on eBay. Soon after, opened up another account on OfferUp. Soon after that, opened up another account on Fiverr.com and started selling my clothes, selling my son's clothes, reselling at thrift stores, creating videos on Fiverr for marketing companies, and all the money was being put into my secret bank account. Took me 4 years. I made $50,000 and was able to walk out June 21st, 17. 16, 17, I don't even know anymore. Somewhere around there, literally walked out, dropped my keys, dropped my phone, my computer, everything. And I literally walked out because I didn't have a car and left.
That's incredible. And in your experience with your own story and with the women you've worked with, I hear a lot in the personal development and the coaching industry of like, just leave and just do the thing. And I think sometimes that can make people feel a little bit either alienated or like they're not getting the support they actually need, because I think sometimes it isn't that easy, especially if you have kids involved, and or how, depending on the abuse style of the person you're with, where if you aren't financially able to just walk out and leave at that moment. Can you speak a little bit more into that as well, around your experience with that? Because I think that would be so helpful too for anyone that might be listening that's like, I literally can't just leave. Like,
yeah,
whether it's a money thing or support with other family if they have kids or any of that, because you experienced all of that. So
100%. And this is where the journals that you were talking about kind of comes into play. So I am not even kidding. I didn't have these journals when I left my partner. It wasn't until after I left my partner that I've been doing these interviews and talking and speaking, and I'm really dissecting like the way that I did it. And I actually have a blueprint. I have an entire blueprint for females who are trying to get out of narcissistic abuse on how to do it, step by step on how to do it. And one of the biggest things that helped me was a journal that I kept of all of the abuse. And what happens, which I know we're going to touch on a little bit later, is the trauma bond and love bombing that happens, where there's this like roller coaster that we're on, that like right when things right when things are getting really, really bad and you're like, screw this, I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore. And you really start to make plans and you're like, I got to save here and I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to call, so-and-so and figure out whatever it is, call a lawyer. Right when you're starting to just have enough, your abuser senses it. They can sense the power. They can sense that you're sick of it. And they do what's called love bombing, where all of a sudden you go from being the worst person on the face of the planet to the best person on the face of the planet. And within days, I could go from the most ghetto, dirty, unorganized, idiotic person he's ever met to being a brilliant, intelligent, Barbie doll, sexiest woman he's ever met his entire life. And what happens is you can't stay focused on making a plan to get out because they have you on this thing. And when you're way up here, you're like, wait a minute. This is great. This is absolutely fantastic. So what I did is I started to create a journal during the down times. And I would journal over and over and over again, day after day after day after day, of all the negatives, because they kind of screw with you into thinking that you're insane. Because when you start talking about, hey, you did this and you did this, they're like, no, I didn't. I didn't even do that. What are you even talking about? You're exaggerating it. So by writing it down and putting dates on it, consistently putting a date on it, and that's what the journals do, is there's actually prompts that go every single day so it looks identical, and you can actually, at a glance, realize, hey, this has been going on for 62 pages. This has been going on for 100 pages. This has been going on for 3 abuse journals. You can really start to realize, like, I'm not insane. This is literally happening over and over and over again. And whatever your number is, right? I had a number where I was like, I finally had so many pages because I would read them. I'd go through them to make sure I wasn't going crazy. Mm-hmm. And I had a number where I looked through and I was like, because we want to think the best, right? That's why we're with these people, because there's like potential. And you're thinking like, I can change them, or whatever your thought process is. But after you see the same thing going on and on over again, we all know the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So once you've done the whole, like, I'm really mad, that didn't work. I'm really sad, that didn't work. I'm going to ignore it, that didn't work. And you continue to see whatever your pages are, whether it's this thick or this, whatever, there's going to come a time where there's a number where you're like, I am not insane. This is definitively a problem. It is shown over the course of time. And if I don't leave now, this is just going to become an encyclopedia, Britannica, thing on my shelving unit. So, saying just leave, you need to start tracking it, because you're right. It is hard to just leave 1,000%. I did 15 years every single day. I'm not even kidding. Every single day, probably from year 1.5 till 15, every day, multiple times a day, I thought to myself, I need to leave. I need to get out of here. And I did it for 15 years. So, it's tracking it. It's convincing yourself. We have to convince ourselves that it makes sense, because you do have children, because there are other people involved. And then once you get definitive with your thought process, see, I started my abuse journal before I knew about narcissism, luckily. So I had already thought, like, I have to get out of here. And I started keeping track, like recording it basically on the things that were happening to me. So once I found out about narcissism plus my abuse journal, I was like, holy crap, I'm out of here. But that's what it is. You have to convince yourself. Nobody else can convince you. I encourage you to keep asking questions. I encourage you to keep going through the groups, ask dumb questions. One of my biggest things was just like, is this normal? This and this and this, is this normal? Google what a healthy relationship looks like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just your mind. You have to convince your mind yourself and do whatever it takes to get to that point, and have a date, have a definitive number of pages, have like a thought process or a plan for, hey, if this continues past this date, past this year, past whatever, I need to start making plans. And because nobody is put on this earth to be miserable. You're not supposed to be miserable. We weren't put here to be someone's punching bag.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a piece where people who identify, especially as empaths, want to see the best in others and make excuses for them. And, oh, this is because of their, and they take on a lot. And I really, really want to spend more time on this, explaining and really understanding trauma bonding, because this is a piece that when you don't know what love bombing is and the cycles that you were speaking of, the lows and the highs that happen with abusers, is there is an addiction that can happen in your own physiology and chemistry, where it's almost like a drug addiction, where you start to expect and almost you get addicted to the highs and the lows. And I know in my personal experience with love bombing specifically, where between the love bombing and the gaslighting, it can start to make you feel crazy and start to question your, like you were saying, like, am I the one that's crazy? Or like, you really get into this piece where you start gaslighting yourself. And yeah, I'd love to hear more in your experience and from what you've researched and how you work with people around what is trauma bonding, what are some of the elements like love bombing and the gaslighting and different things, and how to know it's happening, and also how to pull yourself out of it when it is happening.
Exactly. So trauma bonding is the cycle that I was talking about, basically the up and down. You'll probably even relate to saying, like, before I even heard about narcissism, I used to actually tell my abuser, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. Like that's what I use for my analogy. Like, there's such high highs and such low lows. But the trauma, that is in essence what the trauma bond is. So it's basically a cycle or a pattern of abuse, really, really bad, negative things that are said to you, combined with really, really positive reinforcement.
Twin flame, you're my soulmate.
Yes,
you're the only person I could ever be with.
yes.
Yeah.
And even when you are at that point where you're like, I'm done, I'm finished, that's when they start to really throw these things at you. And what's so crazy, what you just said reminded me of that, is I'm in a lot of narcissistic abuse Facebook groups, and I'm in those groups to help, to assist, because I've been there and I've done that. But what's so interesting is women will put up whole screenshots of letters, of cards, of emails, of text messages. And I feel as if I am reading the same exact letters that I received from my abuser, because they all say the same thing. When they're trying to get you back, when they're trying to explain things, they do this whole slew of, you're the best and no one will ever, and you are the only. And it makes you feel so good. You're like, yes, finally he gets it. This is the day. This is the day when he finally gets how amazing I am. And what happens is you fall for it. We all fall for it. If not once, multiple times. And we come back, we put our swords away, we stop planning to leave, and we fall back into the trap. And within 24 hours, even, for real, like hours, 24 hours, 2 days, you're right back in the same cycle. And it's the pulling, or the, what would be the word for that? But you just want that feeling back so bad that you'll do anything, because it's right there on the cusp. He just fed you like a little itty bit of a carrot, and you're like, all I have to do is just do all the dishes, act right, say all the right things, make sure everything is absolutely perfect, and then I'll get that feeling back, and then he'll call me his princess again. And they give it to you just enough to make you kind of keep running. And it's a cycle. It's a complete cycle. They all do it. We all think that this is the day, and it's a total cycle. And that's what writing things down does. Writing things down, document it. You'll actually start to see the cycle for real with your eyes versus your mental, trying to recall it, and you'll see the pattern. 100%.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a brain fog or cloud that happens and again, it's like an actual addiction where your memory doesn't work properly, and is my experience of you tend to brush off the like more negative times. It's kind of like when people break up and then they think back to like how great it actually was when really it wasn't. And what are some of the flags initially that you found for trauma bonding? And what I've seen and experienced with both men and women, whether it's like female friendships or potential dating, where when people are love bombing you and telling you how amazing you are when they haven't even, when they don't really know you like that yet, you know, to actually have it grounded, where they're doing it in such a way to get you hooked and to, because they're telling you all the validation and all the good things that you always wanted to hear, whether it was from childhood and your parents or later in dating life, that this piece of wanting to have that love and that validation that maybe you've been seeking your whole life, which I think is pretty common for a lot of women and potentially men in general. But what are some of the red flags in the beginning stages of trauma bonding, whether this is them holding that space to hear all of your deepest, darkest secrets on your second date, you know, because they're such good listeners, but really they use it later as like, oh, you're so insecure or jealous because of this childhood trauma or whatever. And the love bombing. What has been your experience of red flags for people to look out for in the initial stages before they get into later into the relationship?
This is hard for me, and I'm going to be totally transparent, and this might not be where you're wanting me to go with this, but this is hard for me because the man that I am now engaged to hit me just the way a narcissist would hit me. And I've been with him now for 4 years. The first year I was with him, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, because it was just so the same of literally what we would call love bombing, where it was, you're so beautiful, you're so great, I love you so much, like right away. So much so that I was like, this is again, we're doing this again. I'm not doing this again. And since then he has proven himself, or however you want to put that. But it's really, really important for the listeners to realize that when you're coming out of a narcissistic abusive relationship, you have to be careful, because what a narcissist does in the beginning of a relationship could, not always, could look very similar to what a man is supposed to do with you, but for like forever. Telling you that, you know, they love you right away. Using the word soulmate right away, using the word, you know, twin flame right away. Little extra things that normal relationships in 2021 don't necessarily do. For instance, holding the door open for you, or letting you choose what, you know, where we're going to eat, letting you choose what you want to order. Now, you'll start to realize that within the first few dates, these things are happening, and then slowly they'll just start to disappear. So date 3 or 4, you're making all the decisions, you're feeling really comfortable, you're feeling powerful. You're like, wow, this is a man that's making me feel powerful in my femininity and my choice, you know, my ability to make choices. But then literally they can only do it for a certain amount of time, very short amount of time, like literally only maybe 5 to 7 dates where they can handle that. And you'll start to see huge red flags drop, where like, your opinion doesn't matter. They don't want to hear you all of a sudden. You're speaking and they cut you off. You know, if you're used to being able to speak for a good 20 minutes to tell a story, and then all of a sudden 2 minutes into it, they're cutting you off. Huge red flags when you go from having a whole lot of power to all of a sudden, like, big things are dropping that you're no longer capable or able to do within that relationship. So be mindful of not only the really, really awesome, beautiful, nice things that just seem a little too nice, accompanied with all of a sudden they're disappearing, and it's as if it never even happened, or you're like thinking, you're like dreaming or something. One of the things that really stood out to me still, and this creeps me out so much that I didn't see this before my ex and I started dating. It was probably the second time we'd ever gone out. We were not dating yet. We were just like going to lunch. We had gone to lunch in Chicago. We were at a restaurant called Portillo's. For those of you that are in Chicago, Portillo's. He said to me, he was asking for my advice. We were both in sales, and he had asked for my advice. Hey, what do you think about blah, 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 how I'm running this part? And I gave my honest, powerful female advice. And I was like, I think you're doing this and this and this wrong. And I think that you could do this better. And I said it in a very professional way. I said it very maturely, non-Valley girlish. And he said to me, wow, normally I wouldn't take other people's criticism, but from you, I will. And it's so weird. I remember where we were sitting. I remember what it sounded like. I remember how it made me feel. And it's so interesting now looking back that little tiny itty bitty scenario was 100% love bombing. Like, he was letting me have power. He was letting me feel good. He was letting me feel as if I was like, my words mattered and my opinion mattered. And then literally within a year, nothing, zero of anything that I had to say mattered for the rest of the duration of our relationship. But a huge turning point for me now looking back, of like a huge red flag of like, normally I'm not down with this, but for you, yes. Huge.
That's a huge red flag. And
Huge.
And this is a piece where like, and it's so hard when you're first like in the like honeymoon period of like, especially the thing with narcissists too, is that they're very charismatic. They're very much like the shiny object in the room that everyone wants to be around, and they like can talk to anybody, and they make you feel so good when you're around them. And there's a piece, I do this a lot in the coaching I do with women around how does it make you feel, and paying more attention to how you feel in your body when you're having those conversations. Because I'm sure if you think back to that now of like how you felt in that moment, there might have been a part of you that was like kind of like, it feels good, but it's weird. Like I hear, like, I know it's supposed to be a compliment, but something feels off here. And like getting so attuned to that part of ourselves, because there is this piece of trauma bonding where we tell these like deeper truths, the sharing each other's trauma and bonding over that, or the love bombing that can happen where this person over time, especially if they're a covert narcissist, they can't maintain that as like their genuine beingness of how they show up for people. It is the grandiose show offy, like, I'm going to take you on the best dates you've ever been on, but then like a year into it, they don't even make time for dates anymore. That was my experience of a man that I dated, where it was like, we're going to do all the magical things, and then a like year into the relationship, they don't even have time for like dates, things like that. Where I also think your journals would be an amazing tool for women who are dating to make sure to pay attention to
100%.
Is this person that I'm dating, how are they showing up now, a week from now, a few weeks from now? So instead of getting taken away in the love bombing and the honeymoon phase and all the chemicals and that addiction that can happen, and having it on paper around really like checking the facts around, is this person showing up that in a way that's healthy for me, in a way that feels good for me, that is reliable, versus like a show or a performance, especially with covert narcissism, because that is so much harder to see unless you like live with somebody, or you're really attuned to how people say things and how you feel to really to spot that one right away too.
100%. Yep, I completely agree with you.
And so with this, how have you, over your journey with this, how have you been able to learn how to identify and or stop the trauma bonding when you notice it? Because this can happen in friendships, it's like not necessarily intentional, I think, sometimes for people, especially if they've had abuse in the past, and that love bombing and trauma bonding is very much just kind of normal in their way. So how have you learned how to spot this, whether it's in potential friendships or partnerships?
A lot of it is being authentic to yourself. So I always say, with my clients, one of the first things that I do is have them write down their real authentic boundaries or rules that they have for their life, whether it's relationships, family, or friendships. There should be things that you 100% don't appreciate, don't allow to happen in and around your presence, and actually keeping those boundaries, having those boundaries, and kind of making a decision to support your self-care no matter what. So you might even have to exit an entire situation or exit an entire, group date if it's not feeling authentic to yourself. So really allowing yourself to be, I don't want to say greedy, like I'm thinking greedy. What's the word for that? Selfish, but again, that just sounds so negative, but towards your mental health, towards your mental health, whether
almost
it
like
is
protective, like you get to be protective of that.
Yeah, 100%. If somebody is not treating you authentically the way that you know that you should be treated, you're allowed to ignore phone calls. You're allowed to not text back. There's this feeling that we have sometimes as empaths that we have to respond to all of the things, negative and positive, all of the time. Give yourself permission to realize you can get a text, you can get a call, you can get an email from somebody, and you can not respond. Similar to us here talking, there's been a few times where already I've been speaking, I'm on a little bit of a roll, and then I forget my word usage, or I forget what I was about to say. And instead of you butting in and feeling like you have to close the space and you have to fill in the word that I'm thinking, you're holding the space for me to be allowed to just authentically take however much time it takes for me to think of the word that I'm trying to think of, or the direction that I'm trying to go in. And I appreciate that. And that is the same with all of our friendships, with all of our relationships. Just because somebody's coming at you with something, you are allowed to sit back and dissect it and think about your response. I can't even tell you how empowering it is to sit on a comment or a social media, text message, friends, relationships, and read it, see that it's read. The person can see that it's read, set it aside. We're not being abusive, right? We're not abusing our power. We're not like setting out to do the silent treatment. That's different. What I'm talking about is allowing your mind, allowing yourself time to actually authentically think of a response that feels good to you, that is appropriate, that is mature. I'm not talking about letting it hang for 3 days if you're in a healthy relationship or what have you, or a non-healthy relationship. There is time for you to be able to speak there and think authentically. And there is also the opportunity, since we are talking about narcissism, to stone or to gray rock and to not respond. Just because somebody's throwing goodness at you and greatness at you and telling you that you're so great and fabulous and they love you, you don't have to respond to that. A lot of times this stuff is bait, where they're actually baiting you to get some sort of response. One of the things that my ex used to do was send me beautiful pictures of us. As soon as we get into some sort of argument, all of a sudden 16 pictures of us as a couple on vacation, doing this, doing that. I miss you. I miss this. Let's get back to this. And there's a knee-jerk reaction to want to be like, yeah, that was in the past. Say something snooty back, say something loving back. That opens up the conversation. That's all they want. All they want to do is just open up the conversation again. And you don't have to. You can be silent. You can take your time with responses, really take care of your mental and emotional health while you're going through this.
Absolutely. And there's an element, I love everything you just said too, because I think there's a piece, especially dependent upon how you were raised, where you might not even know what your own boundaries are or what a healthy relationship looks like, which I think is a lot of reason why a lot of women and men get into relationships where this kind of stuff happens, because they actually don't know their boundaries or their authentic truth around what is healthy and what isn't. And really getting to take the space and the time to identify that for yourself around what is it in other relationship I see as healthy or that I want to experience, and getting to know that you get to have that for yourself is so huge. Yeah. And I think there's so much around where narcissists, that you are their source of energy, of validation. So it's an interesting thing where they come in and kind of like vampire people's energies. And then when they either are bored with it or they feel like they're not getting what they need out of it, and they kind of move on. And so this piece around what you were saying around not responding right away and taking the time to kind of filter it and discern it and process it and see how it feels for you, is really a process of healing, because trauma in the truest sense of its word is something that's too fast, too much, too soon. So in this like urgency to respond and this urgency to make sure everyone else gets your time and energy, that's actually kind of a trauma response in you giving away your energy and you giving away everything, versus getting to hold this space for yourself around what do I allow in, what do I allow out, and having more of that inner authority around that. Exactly. And with that being said, in regards to getting rid of limiting beliefs or where we internalize abuse, what was your experience? And I'd love to hear your wisdom on when women are in this place where like, I can't do it without him, or I'm going to fail, and these limiting beliefs around what you're actually capable of as a human being, and how that might get skewed in these relationships.
This is kind of a funny story here. So my whole duration of that relationship was based on me thinking I couldn't do it without him. He held all the money. The rule in the house actually was for real. And this sounds crazy, but the rule in our house for real was whoever makes all the money makes all the rules. So whenever I started my opinion on anything, it was always, do you have any money? I mean, that's literally how, like, it just hits you. Like, oh my God, it's crazy. And I didn't have any money. So I didn't have an opinion. So whoever makes all the money makes all the rules. And so anyways, I had the limiting belief that I couldn't do it without him, that I would fail. He used to tell me that if I ever left, within 2 months, he'd find me in the back of a dumpster living in a cardboard box. Like, he literally said this to me. He would say that if I left him, there's no way that I would ever make more than $31,000 a year. Such a weird, obscure number. Not 30,000, not 35,000, exactly 31. Like, just so heavy. And I had these limiting beliefs. And when I left, or as I was leaving, even not even when I left, but as I was leaving, I had to start working on I am statements and real affirmations for myself. And I carried those through that relationship, out of my relationship. And my fiance now actually viewed me the first year, and we had a little bit of turbulence in the beginning, because I was viewing him as a narcissist because I'm trying to like save myself. And he's actually viewing me as an egotistical maniac because I'm sitting here like, I am powerful. I know everything. You know, we would just be in the middle of a conversation and he'd be like, you know, do you know if the grocery store is right or left from here? And I'd be like, right. And we'd get there and he'd be like, how did you know that? And I'd be like, because I know everything. Like, so in his face. And he actually wound up sitting down with me like 6 to 8 months in. And he's like, listen, like these little things that you're doing, they're coming off super like too much. It's just too much. What is up? Like you're looking like a total egotistical maniac. And I had to explain to him that I was reprogramming my mind because for years I was telling myself, and my partner was telling me, that I was insignificant and that I wasn't powerful and that I had no money and that I didn't know anything. So I had to tell myself, I had to be my own best friend. And I had to start coming up with these, I am brilliant. I am intelligent. I know everything. I know the things. I am capable. And by reaffirming these things to myself over and over in all aspects of my life, patting myself on the back for even making my bed. You know, I would stand back from my bed, even sometimes now, and I'd be like, look at how freaking awesome my lines look today. Those are the things that you have to do to yourself in order to rid yourself of these limiting beliefs that have been sitting on us, not always from our relationships, like our narcissistic relationships, but a lot of times if you're in a narcissistic relationship, it's because your whole life has been filled with them. So these are limiting beliefs that are carried from childhood a lot of times. And nobody on this earth is going to help you break those limiting beliefs. The only person that can break those limiting beliefs from you is yourself. That is the only person. You can sit down with a coach, they can sit down with you and tell you, but until you actually start saying it yourself with your own words and allowing your mind to hear your own voice, it's really, really hard for you to actually break free from those chains and leave them behind and walk forward as a powerful, confident individual. So, you know, getting rid of those and making that a priority in your life after you've left these relationships is imperative. It's absolutely imperative for yourself and for your children, if you have children.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the women that are out there that are like feeling this and they're like, I know, was there a point in which you had this piece where you're like, with the I am statements, and really, what was it that clicked or shifted for you to get to that point where it was like, I have to do this for myself? Because I think there's a lot of women that know, like, yeah, but maybe they even feel powerless within themselves to actually make the change. It's like, yeah, I know what I need to do, but then, you know, life happens or they get distracted by another relationship or whatever. What was it that shifted in you where it was like, no, I have to break these beliefs for myself?
I think a lot of it was my son, which sounds kind of cliche-ish, but I think a lot of it was my son. And a lot of it was when I was in that relationship and I had learned the truth, I had made myself a promise that I would create a platform that was filled with, like I said, like I wrote this down and I was like, I have to create a platform where I am teaching people, women, about this. This is so insane. So I forced myself basically to get to a powerful stance so that I could become the voice for other women, because we're all given stories. We all have journeys that we go through. And you have two paths. You can either go the path of victim or you can go the path of teacher. And now that doesn't mean like teacher, like you have to be like you and I, where we're coaches, but I mean teacher, like a better mother for your children. That's a teacher. You know, so you're either teaching your children how to be powerful, brilliant human beings, or you're teaching them how to be a victim. And I refused to allow my son to be brought up in the eyes of a victim, because I'm not, because I am literally not, because I'm not. And I believe 100% that every single one of us, the whole cliche of like the sperm and the egg, and there's a million sperm that come and we fight through to get to the egg, and the sperm that gets the egg is the champion. We are all that person. Like all of us are that champion. The only reason you are here is because you are a fighter. We are all naturally fighters, but it's just whether or not you decide to actually grab onto that and believe it. And I chose to grab onto it and believe it. I wanted my son to see a powerful female, a confident female. I didn't want him to see anybody break me. We've been through a lot together between my past, the narcissist, and now. And I wanted better for him. I wanted better for him. And he is so strong. He is so vibrant. He is so funny. He stands tall. He speaks well. And it sounds kind of conceited, but I take all of, I did that. Like I did that. And it feels really good. It feels really good looking back. I didn't want any regrets. I didn't want any what ifs. I didn't want to sit back and think at 55 years old, thinking, I wonder what would have happened if I went the other way. So I fought like hell. I read every book, read every forum, watched every YouTube video that I could get my hands on, every audio book, and slowly have created what I am now in the midst of creating. And I want a huge platform. I want a huge platform for women to stand on as a foundation of education of all of the things that we don't know that we should know, such as, you have the right to not respond. You have the right to say no. You have the right to say yes. You have the right to wear whatever you want. You have the right to be a gay or a lesbian or a trans. You have the right to have your choices. See, I didn't know I had choices. You actually have a choice. I didn't know that I could speak. I didn't know that I could use my voice. I didn't know that there was other options. And I want women to know that. I want women to know that they have a choice.
So powerful. I feel like you just took me to church with that. Yes. And that's what it's, just, I think the more, I think there's an element where there comes a breaking point for most people in their lives where they get to choose. Is this the moment that I rise again? Is this the moment that I step up? Is this the moment that I choose me? Or is this where I continue to let it go on? And I think there's always multiple opportunities. And like for you, you're like, it was 15 years of like really getting into where you got to that breaking point where you're like, F this, I'm done. I'm going to, create my exit strategy. And I do think there is an element of people having different breaking points around what they're, feel like they should put up with or what they can put up with, or there's a lot of shame around it, especially for moms, of like, how could you break up the family? And you should try and do everything you can to make it work, even if it's abusive. And that comes a lot from like religious stuff too.
Don't even get me started on that, girl.
Yeah. And so with that being said, where with the time management and the organization to help you step out of those experiences, how was that for you? Because it sounds like you had like a pretty extensive, as far as like getting storage unit and other jobs lined up and kind of like this behind the scenes thing happening. How was that for you with organization, time management, to create the space and the foundation for you to choose yourself and to step into that?
So I teach that every problem, anything, I don't even care what it is, anything that you have going on in your life that is not at a 10 is because of a lack of time management and a lack of organization. Now, does that mean that we're going to be 10s in all the areas all of the time? Obviously, of course not. But if there is an area of your life that is hurting you, that is frustrating you, that is causing you depression, if you sit down and you actually map out a plan, time-oriented and organized, time management and organization, you can get out of, you can crawl out of, you can climb out of any problem ever. And that's what I teach. I teach planning. So if you're in a narcissistic relationship and you're lost, you're like, dude, I'm so broken. I can't even think straight. I'm so broken. Sitting down and actually allowing yourself just an hour before bed to get a notebook and start to just write. What do you want? What do you want your world to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your marriage to look like? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? And as you continue to write for 30 minutes or an hour every single night, however much time you have, even if it's 10 minutes, what would it look like if you did get out? If you had to come up with a plan to escape, what would the plan look like? Not that you have to leave, but like if you were going to create a plan, what would it look like? If you needed a certain amount of money to move out, approximately how much money would that be? And allowing yourself to not definitively, because it's scary. Yeah. It's like, holy fuck, I'm going to go from like this to that. Like that's scary. So start to ease your way into it, realizing that you're easing your way into it by saying, well, what if I decided to leave? What would that look like? if I had to leave, how much money would I approximately need? And what'll happen is as you're really starting to sit, your mind will start to open and refocus. And all of a sudden, it will automatically start to create a real lifelike plan for you, a real journey, a real path for you. So it's not like you have to sit down and be like, okay, step one, I'm leaving on this date. Can you do that? Yes. Like that was mine. Like I was so done. I was like, step one, the next day I went to the bank, but we don't all work like that. And I know that if it hadn't have been so long, there's so many different ways, and all of my clients, they're all in different areas. So I always just say, hey, listen, if you're just now learning about this, be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, realize that there's trauma bonding, realize that there's actual like scientific things like happening in your mental and emotional nervous system that is keeping you where you are, and allow yourself to just think what ifs and allow yourself to start there. I don't know if that answered your question. Did I go off on a different?
No, it's great. Okay. Yeah. And that's so powerful too. I think there's an element of in the trauma bonding and in some of that stuff, it can feel like in that giving your power away where you don't necessarily have a strong foundation of the organization and your own game plan for yourself in general in your life. Because I think a lot of the time people get really swept into the narcissist's life in general around like, oh, they're better than me, and they put them on a pedestal, and your whole life becomes about supporting their vision and their mission and all of that stuff. So I think that's really powerful, whether it's in your personal life, your love life, or business, of having a plan and a foundation that will support you in creating what you want is so important for any area of your life around organization. It's really important.
And I do want to say something. I hope I'm not going like over or anything, but I want to just say something really fast because I actually just kind of lied. I said like I made a plan and I sat down and I was like, I'm out of here. There was still trauma bonding. There was still love bombing. So there was 100 times or more, way more than that, where I actually thought to myself, maybe I won't leave. Maybe I won't leave. But what happened was I made a decision that I was going to save money just in case. So at that point, I was like, whether I leave or whether I go, I can make that decision whenever I want, but whether I leave or whether I go, I am going to start making money for myself so that if and when I ever decided I wanted to leave, I couldn't use that as an excuse. Because what was happening is every single time I'd be like, that's all, I'd be like, okay, cool. I have no money. So like, okay, well now I have to start saving another years. So what happened is I'm like, hey, listen, I keep doing this whole thing. I was honest with myself. I keep doing this whole thing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, driving me crazy. I'm taking my power back. What can I do to be powerful in this space? I'm not saying I'm going to leave, but what can I do to be powerful in this space? And I said, the only thing that's holding me back every single time is freaking money. I have no money. So I said, hey, I have to be smarter than myself because sometimes we're sort of dumb. Sometimes we're so caught up in the love and the story and not wanting to like upset the apple cart or whatever it is that, we don't do what's best for ourselves. So I just definitively made a commitment to myself to just make money. And then whenever I decided to leave, it would be there. And I took it, one day I was like, okay, this is the day. But that gave me my power to be able to do that, versus getting to that day again and then realizing, okay, well, today's the day, and then having no money and then having to stay another. Right. So it's just preparing. You're just preparing yourself for what ifs. You're allowing yourself to have that power because everybody deserves that. Everyone deserves to have the power to make a choice to leave or to stay. We're not like prisoners in our relationships. You should be able to go or stay in any of them. And if finances is an issue, then you need money.
Yeah, that's so powerful because I think that's a pretty common theme that for women especially, is they kind of let go of their finances to their partner. And that's such a staple for power around our own finances. And so true to what you said around any relationship, you should be able to come and go in that freedom sense, that you don't have to stay because you don't have money, or you don't have to stay because you aren't able to take care of yourself outside of the relationship. And I know there's other factors if people have like physical or mental illness things happening at certain times, but for the majority, having that foundation for yourself is so important throughout any relationship. I'm so glad you spoke to that, because that's so important.
And I want to say one more thing, a trick for females who are watching right now. If you are going back and forth on leaving and staying and finances and lack of finances, just ask yourself one question. What's so funny about this is my ex asked me this question, and this question was stapled in my mind. He asked me, what would you do? Just like casual conversation in the car. What would you do if you won the lottery? And I didn't, in my out loud, I was like, oh, I'd start a women's shelter, which is true. I do want to start a women's shelter, but that's not what I thought. What I thought was I would leave your ass like the next day. That was my answer. I would literally, the only thing was money. And that right there was the answer. Like, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what's the first thing you would do? Would you leave your partner? That's your answer.
Mm-hmm.
That is your answer. Yeah. So that is your sign to start working on your finances, get your stuff together so you have choices. It's literally as simple as that question.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like with your journal prompts that you have, and having that self-reflection around what is your truth, and asking those harder questions, because sometimes I think this is where women get, well, maybe it's not so bad, or I can put up with this for a little longer, when it's like, what's your real truth? Like the one that's not easy, but is going to like open you up to more of life. And that just a simple question. If I had all the money I desired, would I be with this person? Would I hire this coach? Would I, like whatever the thing is. So that's so powerful. Yep. This has been amazing. I'm sure we could talk for like hours on end. And I would love for you to share what you got going on, where people can connect with you. I'm going to drop all of your information in the comments below after we end as well. But let people know what you got going on and how they can connect with you.
Well, I'm finally Googleable. So if you just put Sabrina Victoria in Google, all of my stuff will pop up beautifully. SabrinaVictoria.com is like my main channel that has like all the stuff that I do in all the companies that I run. So that's the easiest. And then that has all my social media in there. So SabrinaVictoria.com.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thanks for being here today. It was such a great conversation, and I look forward to hearing more.
Yes.